Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us something pretty fascinating. The Connoisseur's Sex Guide.
Hmm.
Now, our aim here isn't just to be, salacious. We want to really dig into the insights it offers about physical intimacy.
Right.
Ultimately, maybe help understand it better, perhaps enhance pleasure in relationships.
Absolutely. And it's more than just like a list of positions.
Oh, definitely.
It's presented as a resource for couples who want to explore their physical connection more deeply, venturing beyond the familiar into what it calls bolder erotic experiences.
Bolder, okay.
Yeah, and the underlying idea seems to be that this kind of exploration can actually lead to increased adoration and understanding between partners.
That's interesting.
What immediately stands out is just the sheer range of subjects it tackles.
It truly is comprehensive, isn't it? We're talking about a deep dive into, well, numerous sexual positions.
Hmm.
From the well-known man on top, woman on top, to rear entry, side by side, kneeling, sitting, even various upright approaches.
And that's just scratching the surface, really. It then moves into tricks and tantrism, looking at specific techniques alongside the more spiritual dimensions of tantric sex and the Tao of sex.
Okay.
Following that, it addresses topics like anal sex. And here the guide really emphasizes the need for a very gradual, very communicative approach.
Which makes sense. And for those with maybe a taste for the dramatic, there's a whole section on role play and fantasy.
Yeah, taking things outside the bedroom even,
Mhm.
ideas for sex in different locations, exploring various fantasy scenarios.
Including submission and domination, it mentions.
It does. Plus, it touches on sex extras like bedroom toys and sex boosters.
Boosters. Like what?
Well, we'll get into that, but also things like the often underappreciated role of dressing for sex.
Sensual materials, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It even includes a glossary of fetishes and philias.
Wow. Okay. Comprehensive is the word.
And finally, it delves into the science of orgasm and response, covering sexual responses in both sexes, specific techniques for achieving orgasm, the potential for multiple orgasms.
And even how to influence them.
Right. So, given your interest in getting to the core of things quickly but thoroughly, we're going to focus on the most actionable insights and maybe some surprising facts from this really detailed guide.
Okay, sounds good. Let's unpack this. Maybe start with a foundational idea in the guide. The importance of communication and novelty.
Yes, it makes a strong case that feeling completely accepted by your partner is just crucial for deeper sexual intimacy.
Acceptance. Okay.
Exactly. The guide recognizes that many couples face inhibitions or maybe just lack experience,
Sure.
which can create a reluctance, maybe even a fear, of trying new things, even if there's an underlying desire there.
Right. So the guide positions itself as a way to help couples overcome these barriers.
Precisely. By offering this wide array of erotic experiences to consider. And what's fascinating here is the recurring emphasis on, stepping outside your routine.
Yeah, I saw that. It specifically points out how surprise and spontaneity, things like unexpected sensual kisses or experimenting with different positions, can be incredibly exciting.
It's a good reminder, isn't it? Sometimes the simplest shifts from the usual can inject a lot of energy.
Totally.
And it's not just about the physical acts either. The guide highlights how powerful verbal communication can be during sex.
Tender talk, it calls it.
Yeah, noting that tender talk expressing attraction, describing what you find appealing about your partner's smell or taste, can be a very potent aphrodisiac.
So it really underscores that deep connection between emotional and physical intimacy.
Definitely.
And on the physical side, it makes the point that trying different positions is a great way to add excitement.
Simply because most people enjoy novelty.
Yeah. Keeps things from becoming predictable, allows for discovering new sensations.
Which leads us naturally into the guide's really detailed exploration of various sexual positions and their unique characteristics.
Okay, let's start with man on top. The guide mentions this has been historically favored in Western cultures.
Right. Possibly because it can be comfortable, maybe less physically demanding sometimes.
And it highlights the intimate face-to-face connection, right? Allows for kissing, caressing, intimate whispers.
All that closeness. But even within this seemingly basic position, the guide suggests variations.
Like how?
For instance, it explains how the missionary position can be altered just by the woman lifting her legs,
Oh, right.
which can create different sensations, sometimes deeper penetration. What's interesting is the guide's attention to detail here.
Yeah.
It points out that supporting her raised legs with your arms can make her more comfortable,
Okay.
and that the man leaning onto his elbows maximizes closeness, makes passionate kissing easier.
Practical tips.
Very Vic. It even describes a specific variation where the woman keeps her legs straight and closed,
For what effect?
which can apparently provide intense stimulation to her labia. So even in a familiar position, subtle changes can lead to quite different experiences.
Okay, interesting. Moving on to woman on top then. The guide emphasizes how this position gives the woman control.
Yeah, control over the pace, the depth, the type of movement. And it notes this can be particularly effective for direct clitoral stimulation.
Which is key for many women.
Precisely. The guide describes different ways the woman can sit astride her partner, explaining that sitting upright allows her to control the intensity of stimulation.
Oh.
It also mentions how leaning backward or forward can change the sensation, the degree of clitoral contact. The core insight seems to be about female empowerment and maximizing her pleasure.
And I found the commas wheel particularly interesting. The guide describes it as a woman on top position where she moves in a full circle.
Yeah, it highlights the idea of embracing playfulness, maybe even a bit of athletic exploration, just for the sake of new sensations and fun.
Sounds, ambitious.
A little. And it also points out that even simple actions, like the woman gently squeezing and releasing with her thighs while on top,
Uh,
can pleasure the man's penis while simultaneously stimulating her clitoris. Dual pleasure.
uh,
The guide really breaks down how these small adjustments in posture can lead to distinct sensations for both partners.
let's talk about rear entry positions. The guide suggests these can often feel exciting.
Yeah, partly because they tap into a sense of the forbidden, perhaps, and can be linked to dynamics of submission.
Forbidden. Interesting framing.
It also notes they can be erotic for both sexes. Women potentially experiencing a sense of vulnerability, maybe helplessness, and men enjoying the deep sensation of thrusting.
Right. But the guide points out nuances too.
It does, absolutely.
Yep.
For example, it suggests that while lying down in a rear entry position can be affectionate, it might limit the woman's movement and clitoral stimulation.
Good to know.
It also recommends using a cushion to improve the angle, prevent discomfort,
Practical again?
and that lifting one of her legs can stretch the vagina and aid clitoral arousal. So even with the excitement, comfort and pleasure are still prioritized.
It contrasts the kneeling position where the woman rests her upper body on the bed, noting that while it might be comfortable for the man, it can limit clitoral access for the woman. It then highlights doggy style as offering more freedom of movement and better clitoral access.
Right, differentiating between those variations.
And I was surprised by the mention of standing rear entry positions, like the elephant,
Yes.
which it describes as potentially erotic for the man, but warns about the risk of a blood rush to the woman's head.
Yeah, it seems the guide isn't afraid to point out potential downsides or risks.
Good.
Indeed. It really covers a wide spectrum. When it moves on to side-by-side positions,
Mm-hmm.
it emphasizes the lazily sensual, intimate, and restful nature of these, suggesting they're well-suited for prolonging intercourse.
So the key insight there is about intimacy and extended pleasure without intense exertion.
That seems to be it,
It specifically mentions how legs intertwined can be particularly sexy.
due to the concentration of nerve endings in the inner thighs, it says.
Right. And it notes the spoon's position is energy conserving and often arousing in its gentle closeness.
It's interesting how it connects even seemingly passive positions to potential arousal.
It is. Then there are the kneeling positions. The guide suggests these offer a fresh perspective.
A new angle, yeah. It recommends maybe starting with standing caresses and then moving into a kneeling position for added variety.
So the takeaway is about introducing novelty through changing angles and levels.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And it points out that deep penetration can be achieved with the woman on the bed, her legs placed on the man's shoulders.
Okay.
It also brings up the idea that spontaneous kneeling sex outside the bedroom can be exciting precisely because of that forbidden aspect.
And suggests using props like chairs or sofa edges.
Right, injecting that element of the unexpected.
Exactly. The section on sitting positions highlights how these can be surprisingly casual and erotic.
Even if the physical sensation isn't always as intense as other positions, it notes.
Right. Particularly good for those impromptu moments. The principle seems to be that intimacy can happen anywhere, even in relaxed settings.
It describes variations like the woman facing away, allowing her to control the pace, maybe even engage in self-stimulation.
Okay.
It also mentions face-to-face sitting, with the woman leaning back, calls it Hector's horse, involving rhythmic pelvic movement.
Hector's horse. Wow.
Yeah. And it points out how the woman can use her feet for leverage in some sitting positions, giving her more control.
Interesting mechanics. Finally, the guide explores upright positions.
emphasizing their suitability for spontaneous passion in various locations. It notes that even slight variations in standing sex can offer distinct sensations.
The key insight being embracing spontaneity and the erotic potential of everyday environments.
Seems like it. It suggests the woman lifting one leg can enhance penetration,
Right.
and that being held up is described rather romantically as a Herculean labor of love.
Ah, okay.
It also mentions how entwined legs can increase closeness and pelvic energy, and again, the idea of using props.
Chairs, wash basins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not just for the different sensual positions they enable, but also for the imaginative, erotic scenarios they can inspire.
Though it does offer a word of caution about the wheelbarrow in the air.
Yes. Calls it quite athletic and potentially risky. Good to have warnings.
Definitely. So clearly, the guide provides a very detailed and varied catalog of positions, really encouraging couples to experiment.
And discover what brings them the most pleasure, both physically and emotionally.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit and delve into what the guide calls tricks and tantrism.
Right. This section seems to move beyond just the mechanics of positioning, exploring ways to deepen connection and heighten pleasure.
How so?
It starts with sex tricks, which seem focused on enhancing immediate pleasure. It mentions techniques like the grind and something called the seizure technique for increased friction.
The seizure technique sounds intense.
It describes it as the man holding back the top of the pubic mound for direct clitoral stimulation during penetration.
Ah,
It also talks about applying steady pressure for G-spot stimulation while simultaneously providing clitoral rubbing.
so the insight is about combining different types of stimulation for maximum effect.
Seems to be. And it highlights the importance of touch beyond just intercourse. Mentions massage during sex, even suggesting a three-handed massage for comprehensive stimulation.
Three-handed. How does that work?
Well, presumably involving hands and perhaps other body parts, or maybe focusing attention strategically. It also touches on oral intimacy, specifically mentioning the 69 position.
Okay. The section on sexual timekeeping is interesting too.
Yeah, advice on practicing recognizing the point of orgasm, attempting simultaneous orgasms.
And understanding the potential for multiple orgasms.
In women, and even some men, it says, emphasizing that stimulation doesn't necessarily need to end after the first climax.
The key takeaway seems to be about extending pleasure and exploring different rhythmic patterns then,
I think so. Then we move into tantric sex,
which the guide describes as more of a spiritual approach.
right? Aiming to enrich both mind and soul, as well as provide profound physical pleasure. It emphasizes the principle of touch for pleasure's sake.
Like sensate focus.
Exactly. It draws that parallel. It's
Yeah.
about intentional, non-demanding touch.
The 3-day event example it gives sounds quite involved.
It is a gradual increase in stroking over several sessions, deliberately delaying intercourse to prolong ecstasy.
And focusing on dissolving boundaries, experiencing each other's sensations.
As your own, yeah. The core insight is cultivating a heightened awareness and a deeper connection over time.
Very different approach.
It notes that side-by-side and rear entry positions can enhance orgasm within a tantric context, and that the missionary position can allow the man to control an impending orgasm by consciously pulling his testicles downward.
Conscious control.
It really emphasizes a mindful, prolonged approach to intimacy, contrasting with the more goal-oriented focus of some other techniques.
Okay. And finally, under this umbrella is the Tao of sex.
Focusing on the flow and balance of energy within the body.
Right. It mentions the belief in meridian points on the genitals affecting related glands.
Yes, these points are believed in traditional Chinese medicine to be pathways for energy flow.
Got it.
And it describes the sets of 9 exercise a specific pattern of shallow and deep penetrations.
Intended to massage these meridian points for overall health.
That's the idea. It also touches on the somewhat controversial practice of ejaculation.
Consciously reversing ejaculation.
To preserve energy,
Okay.
it claims, though it does include a warning about the potential risk of prostate infection.
Important caution.
So the focus here is on energetic and potential health benefits, though with that note of caution.
And the Tao of sex also outlines 9 levels of female orgasm.
Yes. Aiming to help men understand the different stages a woman might experience and provide continued stimulation to help her reach higher levels. It's about a deeper understanding of the body's energetic and physiological responses.
Okay. Let's move on to a topic that often carries some hesitation. Anal sex.
Right. The guide strongly emphasizes the need for gentle exploration, a gradual process using plenty of lubricant.
Patience and prioritizing comfort seem key here.
Absolutely. It points out specific erogenous zones around the anus, particularly the 10 and 2 o'clock positions.
Interesting detail, and I thought the suggestion of tongue bathing the buttocks as a sensual prelude was an interesting way to build intimacy beforehand.
It details techniques for finger massage, too, starting externally, then moving to gentle internal circles with gradually increasing pressure.
But throughout this section, the recurring emphasis is on partner comfort.
And the absolute necessity of stopping if requested. It really underscores the need for open communication and respect when exploring this area.
Crucial. Okay, now for those looking to break away from the usual setting, the guide has a whole section on expanding horizons beyond the bedroom.
It does. Starts with the bathroom, noting it's probably the second most popular room for lovemaking.
The core idea being that a change of environment injects excitement.
Seems to be. It mentions the fun of foreplay in the bath, making love on the edge of the tub or the floor.
It even suggests the pelvic shampoo.
Yeah, is a sensual way to wash each other's genital areas, turning mundane activities into erotic encounters.
The shower gets a lot of attention too, calls it a natural sex toy.
Right. Suggestions for using water jets for massage, alternating pleasure and punishment with hot and cold water.
Even trying to bring a partner to orgasm using only the jets.
It mentions that possibility.
Hey.
Also, soapy massages and shower sex, particularly rear entry. The insight is about using the environment itself as stimulation.
Okay. Moving into the living room.
The guide highlights large armchairs, deep sofas, but especially a thick rug in front of a fire as inviting spots.
Sounds cozy. Suggests the living room is great for sensual massages.
Yeah, the focus shifts to comfort and creating an intimate atmosphere there.
The kitchen is presented as a venue for instant passion.
Though with a crucial warning. Remove sharp objects first.
Good advice. It suggests the discomfort of hard surfaces can actually add a raw edge.
For some, yeah. The idea seems to be embracing spontaneity, even if it's less conventionally comfortable.
Hotels are mentioned for offering a change of scenery.
And the potential for role play with themed rooms. The convenience of room service for indulgence. The takeaway is breaking routine, enhancing fantasy.
And for the more adventurous, love in the great outdoors.
Emphasizes the romantic, different experience while cautioning about public nuisance laws and privacy.
Right. The office is presented as risky, but potentially exciting.
Again, highlighting the risk of discovery as part of the thrill for some. The insight is about the added excitement of the forbidden.
Finally, in this beyond the bedroom category, phone sex.
Touches on it, yeah. Emphasizing it can be personal and arousing with a familiar partner. Offers tips like describing actions truthfully, creating privacy.
And mentions the risk factor again.
Notes that the fear of being discovered can heighten arousal for some people.
Okay, let's move into the realm of imagination with roleplay and fantasy.
Right. The guide suggests various fantasy games. Acting out roles from paper slips, recreating film scenes, creating themed environments at home.
The core insight being tapping into imagination to enhance arousal.
Exactly. And what's interesting is the section on exploring taboos in fantasy.
How does it handle that?
It normalizes it.
Yeah.
Suggests fantasizing about forbidden thoughts is a way to safely explore possibilities. Doesn't mean you want to act on them in reality.
Okay.
It even proposes a game for sharing just a strand of a nervous fantasy with your partner. The takeaway is that fantasy can be a safe space for exploration without judgment.
Good point. It highlights acting out fantasies in unfamiliar locations, too.
Yeah, like a hotel or maybe a friend's empty apartment with permission, of course. It says it can amplify the experience.
And stresses the importance of a code word.
Absolutely. To stop if anyone feels uncomfortable, underscoring safety and consent.
Which is vital. It offers examples of popular fantasy roles.
A few, yeah. Virgin and brigand, teacher and pupil, nurse and patient, slave and mistress. The classics, maybe.
And points out that reading erotic literature aloud can be powerful.
Surprisingly powerful, it suggests, particularly for women's excitement.
And emphasizes that role-playing can involve taking turns being dominant or submissive.
With trust being absolutely crucial for a positive experience.
Which leads us directly into the guide's exploration of submission and domination, or subdom.
Right. It explains this involves a dominant partner intentionally rendering the submissive partner helpless for erotic stimulation.
The core principle being the erotic charge from power dynamics and surrender of control.
That seems to be the idea. It notes that bondage can provide a sense of security for those who find it difficult to let go during sex.
Interesting perspective. And again, it emphasizes boundaries and safe words.
Strongly. And agreeing beforehand on who takes the dominant role. Safety and clear communication are paramount.
Absolutely. It offers examples of bondage scenarios, like the sex slave fantasy.
Yes, and advises starting mild, gradually increasing intensity. It also mentions that playfully tantalizing your partner, withholding pleasure, can heighten arousal.
Okay, it lists various bondage props.
From simple scarves and ties to more elaborate commercial kits, couches, swings, love stirrups.
Love stirrups. Okay, and it touches on spanking and caning.
Explaining that for some, a light slap or tap can be arousing the tingling, warming sensation. Stresses using safe implements,
And provides examples of spanking games.
like say thank you and where would you like it, incorporating teasing and negotiation.
Moving into sex extras, it first covers bedroom toys.
Emphasizing their potential to enhance pleasure and reduce inhibitions. The insight is that these tools expand possibilities for sensation and exploration.
It describes various types of vibrators.
Dual-action pulsating changeable heads, even discrete finger vibrators, the whole range.
And dildos.
For vaginal penetration, some for harnesses or with vibrating rings, double dildos too. Covers cock rings as well.
For maintaining erections.
And sometimes providing clitoral stimulation.
Fun lubes get a mention too.
Various colors, textures, scents, even edible options.
Right. Butt plugs, anal wands.
Plugs for fullness, wands for prostate massage, and for power dynamics, blindfolds and restraints to heighten helplessness and anticipation.
And finally, electrical toys.
Using 10NS-like devices, mild electrical pulses for unique sensations, it says.
Okay. Next, the guide moves to sex boosters, presented as ways to further enhance sexual response.
Right, addressing limitations or amplifying desire and sensation.
Books and magazines with erotic literature are listed first.
As a way to stimulate the imagination, sex toys are reiterated, particularly those for female pleasure.
Then it discusses reducing inhibitions.
Through moderate alcohol use and prescription drugs like phentolamine. It also mentions poppers.
But with significant caution.
Yes, regarding potential side effects and interactions. Very important note there.
Medications like Viagra and Viacrame are included.
For improving erectile function and increasing genital blood flow, respectively.
And finally, testosterone supplements.
As a potential booster for individuals with a deficiency, possibly improving response in both sexes, but wisely advises consulting a doctor.
Always good advice. Okay, the guide then turns to the art of dressing for sex.
Emphasizing the impact of clothes that either accentuate your physique or are easy to remove. The insight is clothing as nonverbal communication and arousal.
Underwear is presented as sexual shorthand.
Yeah, different colors and styles conveying messages, white for innocence, black lace for confidence. Even suggests a playful game of removing underwear with teeth.
Shoes, particularly high heels.
Discussed as a long-standing erotic symbol. Connects to foot fetishes, pedic lovemaking, noting feet are rich in nerve endings.
Body adornments like piercings and tattoos.
Mentioned as personal expression that can be erotically appealing. Suggests temporary henna tattoos for experimentation.
And finally, sensual materials.
Like velvet, silk, fur, feathers, leather, rubber, PVC, even cling film and canvas. For tactile exploration and teasing.
Feather massage techniques, sensory deprivation with fabrics.
Exactly, using materials to enhance touch.
Let's briefly touch on fetishes then. The guide defines them pretty clearly.
As instances where sexual arousal is strongly linked to specific objects or non-conventional interests. The takeaway is recognizing the diversity of human sexual attraction.
It offers theories behind them. Anxiety, childhood associations.
Learned responses, yeah. Also mentions the idea of a strong visual mental link, particularly in male sexuality.
And it includes a fetish and philia glossary with a wide range of examples.
It does. Some more common ones like hair or high heels alongside less common ones. Cinderella fetish, defilement, exhibitionism, fraudage, golden showers, infantilism, kokigami.
Kokigami.
Origami related, apparently.
Yeah.
Also necrophilia, rubber fetish, even a public speaking fetish is listed.
Wow. It's a broad spectrum, illustrating the very personal, sometimes surprising nature of sexual attraction.
Definitely. Finally, we arrive at the science of orgasm and response.
Okay. The guide begins by noting the similarities in physiological responses between sexes.
Significant similarities, yeah. During desire, arousal, orgasm resolution. References Kaplan's model of independent stages. The core insight is the shared biological basis.
It details physiological changes during arousal, heart rate, blood pressure.
Breathing, muscle tension, yeah, and points out some differences in timing of arousal and plateau phase between sexes.
Then it describes his sexual response.
Rapid arousal, erection, scrotal changes, potential sex flush, perspiration, penile contractions during orgasm, ejaculation, the typical sequence.
And outlines for sexual response.
Vaginal lubrication and expansion, tenting, labial and clitoral swelling, nipple erection, muscular contractions, the orgasmic platform, uterine contractions,
Lots going on. The guide offers orgasm techniques for him.
including prostate stimulation, strategies for delaying climax, muscle control exercises, perineum testicle stimulation, using imagination, avoiding inhibitors, good lubrication, the pulsar technique of varied thrusting.
And even moderating orgasm frequency.
It mentions that too.
For orgasm techniques for her, it emphasizes clitoral stimulation.
It's primary for most women, yes. Suggests combining intercourse with manual stimulation or vibrators. Discusses the G-spot too.
And the importance of self-exploration.
To understand one's own patterns of arousal and pleasure.
The possibility of multiple orgasms is explored.
For both sexes, yeah. Noting it's more common in women and typically requires continued stimulation after the initial climax. It even includes training exercises for men.
Training exercise is interesting. Finally, it touches on controlling orgasms.
Discussing simultaneous, sequential, multiple orgasms. Offers techniques for encouraging or delaying orgasm.
Like what?
Things like focusing on sexy thoughts, providing oral or manual stimulation for a partner, engaging in tantric practices, using certain positions like side by side.
So as you can hear, the Connoisseur's Sex Guide truly provides a, well, comprehensive overview.
A very wide array of aspects related to sexual intimacy.
Absolutely. It's a vast terrain for exploration and potentially a valuable resource for deepening understanding and connection between partners.
And we hope this deep dive has maybe inspired you to reflect on the diverse techniques, positions, and perspectives we've discussed. It's crucial to remember, though, that the guide itself underscores the fundamental importance of open communication,
Right.
enthusiastic consent, and mutual enjoyment in any sexual exploration.
Couldn't agree more. And with that in mind, here's maybe a final thought for you listening. Consider just one new idea from this deep dive. Perhaps a position you hadn't considered, a technique that sparked your curiosity, maybe the notion of exploring fantasies together, something you might research further or discuss openly and honestly with your partner.
Because remember, the most rewarding journeys into intimacy are always built on a foundation of trust and open dialogue.